we are live. Welcome to my video. This is going to be my review of the 1999 video game Command & Conquer Tiberian Sun. This is a game that I absolutely love. There will not be any spoilers for the game itself. I can't rule out I might spoil the earlier entries in the Command & Conquer franchise. And let's see, I'm probably not going to swear in this video, but I might describe, these relatively violent games, so yeah. And as with some of my other video game reviews, this is going to be from memory. I have not played this game in years, but I remember it quite well, and I also have my old written review that's almost 20 years old by now to lean on. But yeah, there was a while where this was my favorite Command & Conquer franchise game. It was ultimately overtaken by Red Alert 2, but not immediately, and yeah, this was one of those where there was an enormous amount of hype, and it ultimately didn't live up to the hype. It was in development for several years, and others have already pointed out, by the time it came out, of course, the graphics were dated. They can't, yeah. And there were certain bugs and glitches, but yeah, there was a lot of stuff to really love. Right, and the AI needed work, and there's somewhat more micromanaging and such required than earlier entries in the franchise due to some of the new features. Now, let's see, but yeah, it introduced several new major things, some of which are really good, including hills, cities, instead of the endless villages of the last two games, tunnels, more elaborate terrain, turning power on and off, which can be extremely useful strategically, because it's like, okay, I don't need that thing to be working right now, so just turn it off instead of having to sell it, because once you're in low power, everything slows down. Building a new, you have to make the decision. Do you want to build a new power plant, which is going to take time because you're in low power mode, or are you just going to sell some stuff that uses up power? And yeah, obviously you'll want to avoid low power mode regardless, but no, the idea, the feature of being able to turn it off, yeah, it made bridges repairable, which again, really important strategically. And the tunnels do have the issue that you can't actually fight inside. Tunnels are like the war room, gentlemen. You cannot fight in there, but right on the either side. I'm pretty sure it's been years again, but if I recall correctly, if one side enters the tunnel at one end and the other enters at the other end, they will literally just pass each other without attacking, and then suddenly it's like, okay, well, we're now on opposite ends of the tunnel. Does someone go back the other way, or what do we do here? That's obviously slightly awkward, but yeah, it was an interesting thing to have in there. And I really appreciate it. Tried something new with the cutscenes, which I suppose was not super popular with a lot of fans because they kind of went back. I forget how Generals handled it, but the other ones tend to have, before this one, after this one, the actors will talk directly into the camera, as I'm doing now, to the player, where in this one, the character you play as is actually in the cutscenes, like on screen, so yeah, I really appreciate that. And let's see, I think, how you feel about these changes and additions is obviously subjective, but the creativity and courage required should be commended. And the whole game has a very slick, stylish look to it. The graphics are improved in some ways, like, again, dated, but in some ways certainly improved. Much more detailed, realistic effects on explosions and such. And this is also, it's generally interesting. you can actually, if you attack an enemy base, you might not only destroy buildings, you can like create like these holes in the terrain, well, not quite holes, but like hills and valleys in the terrain with these, you know, explosions that actually mean the enemy won't be able to build on there again. And that's a genuinely really cool, again, really adds strategic, yeah. It is very much a game that encourages somewhat more aggressive play, because of stuff like that and other things that if I don't forget I'll get to. Let's see, yeah, the storytelling is perfectly adequate, and let's see, yeah, the animated portions of the cutscenes look stunning, like huge improvement on the earlier ones, which holy crap, I just realized I completely forgot. I love the earlier games as well. Really, this is a franchise, let's see, I think ultimately, like near the end, they started to kind of get into kind of average, mediocre territory. I don't think I've played a Command & Conquer franchise game that's just downright bad, but I don't, let's see, I think there's like two most recent ones I haven't played yet, but you know, I didn't have access to them for years. I do now. I will get to them eventually. But yeah, the long list of games that I want to get to. But the let's see, what was the thing that the yeah, you know, when I praise this one, I'm not saying that what came before it was just like garbage. Yeah, and the casting is so freaking good. This was one of the huge things that really had us excited as teenagers getting to play this. You take order, if you play as GDI, and you're gonna when you hear this, you take orders from the voice of Darth Vader. You play as Kyle Reese. I mean, not literally, but those are the actors, and those were the roles we connected them to, you know? So just, like, the moment you see Michael Biehn, you know, it's like... And it's not his best performance. Like, the acting is still corny, you know? It tends to be in the Command & Conquer games, you know? And, like, Michael Biehn, I love him. I am one of his biggest fans. He is one of those actors. If he's not, like, amazing, you can really tell. You know, you can tell here, you can tell in... I suppose I won't give away exactly which, but he appears in at least one Alien, you know, game, and yeah. But, you know, it's still really cool and fun to get to see him. And yeah, I mean, the roles they're given just fit perfectly, you know. James Earl Jones, the authoritative type, Michael Biehn, determined soldier, and the lines they give him, you know, it's not quite like Terminator, but you know, yeah, it is this sci-fi action story, and he sells it, you know. He's one of those actors, you can give him just these ridiculous lines, and, you know, like, if he's in the right role, if he's given, you know, the kind of direction that it requires, he can sell it. And, like, the performance is corny here. I do think he sells it. It doesn't feel like he's embarrassed to be there, which is obviously something you really want to avoid. And yeah, like, the Command & Conquer sci-fi, you know, ideas have always been on, you know, teetering on the edge of being downright silly. You know, like the very ending of this one, like some of the stuff in cutscenes, like, holy crap! I don't know how they kept a straight face, but I admire it. And yeah, obviously, there's more Kane. Always love to see him in these. You know, let's see. So the the acting and writing vary, and yeah, as with the first Command & Conquer, there are plenty of highly powerful units, but this game also presents you with ways of dealing with them all. It's less, you know, they try to even things out, you know, and even the super weapons are both powerful and possible to stop. Well, not the ion cannon, but it can do enough damage to be useful, too little to be devastating on its own, you know. And yeah, the super weapons, the Nod, you know, have this what's it called, multi-missile. And thinking about it, I think that's the one they have here. I think the other one is added in Firestorm, but certainly, you know, yeah, it's, you know, they'll fire this, you know, missile, and the thing is, you know, like, ultimately Nod don't really have an immediate defense against it, but they can make their, you know, units and more so their buildings, because in Tiberian Sun itself, you can make a building. It drains power like you wouldn't believe. So that's one you might want to turn off if your base has already been, you know, if your base is currently under attack anyway, and you need the power for something else, yeah. But yeah, a building, so you can't move it, but it covers an area, and this is also when they oh crap, it's been so long. If I recall, this is the first time that you can actually see, when you place it, what's the radius that it's going to. I don't think they had that in the first two or their expansion packs, but yeah, you know, so yeah, that's one way Nod can protect itself from the missile, because even if the enemy knows, okay, the base must be somewhere around here, you know, if they don't know where the most important buildings are, that's when, you know. But what GDI can make is I believe it is called the Firestorm. Let's just go with that. So yeah, from now on, when I say Firestorm, that's what I'm referring to, not the expansion pack. I will make a separate video on the expansion pack to this game, which is also called Firestorm. Yeah, it's one of those, you know, like with how in Prince of Persia, Sands of Time, it's the first game in the trilogy. It's the trilogy, and it's also the actual sands within the game, which, you know, all three of these are important to be able to refer to. Anyway, but yeah, the Firestorm, you build this, like, wall that you know, you can turn on and off, and when it's on, flames will rise anywhere that wall is. If a multi-missile flies over that, it just gets fried and does 0 damage. But when, you know, your own units also cannot safely pass over the Firestorm wall, so you gotta make sure that nobody is standing on it that is one of yours. It's also possible, you know, you gotta, a lot of enemies will just destroy it rather than, but some enemies will actually try to walk past it if it's off. You know, if it's on, obviously they're not gonna. If you turn it on, they get fried. So yeah, just an awesome addition. Let's see, and you know, I think this is a pretty good place to talk about. So let's see, I think, yeah, both sides have some really cool technology to play around with, and they both have a rather interesting APC. And yeah, right, just briefly, the thing with a Firestorm is, once you've turned it on, you can only leave it on for a while. You can turn it back off immediately if you want to. You know, as soon as the multi-missile or enemy units or whatever have been, you know, fried by it. But if you leave it on the whole time, there's a cooldown, and during that there's simply nothing. So that does also mean that the enemy can just choose to wait out. You know, so yeah. But the APC, the GDI one, is amphibious, so you can actually, you know, which I guess makes it an AAPC. And yeah, this of course means you can, you know, the Command and Conquer games don't tend to do that much in the way of stuff like ships. That tends to be more alert and, you know, yeah, but with the yeah, you can get across water with, you know, these units. Yeah, and let's see, the Nod one digs under the ground and then emerges, And they also have another unit called the Devil's Tongue, which also digs under, and then when it comes up, it's got like a flamethrower, so that thing is unbelievably useful against infantry. You know, so just like, yeah, if you become aware, oh, the enemy is moving only infantry in this area, well, you know, send the Devil's Tongue, or multiple, you know, surround them with Devil's Tongues, you know, fry them like that, just fantastic. And the really clever thing is, you can actually do something to prevent the enemy just you know, destroying you like that, because you can make let's see, yeah, I guess concrete. Yeah, you can put concrete on the ground, you know, and let's see, if I recall correctly, you got to do it before you build buildings on it. If you build a building, you can't make concrete around it. You got, you know, that's just so yeah. You know, you got to figure out, do you want to put down a bunch of concrete, and how big is your base going to be, and all this stuff, you know. But yeah, it is 100% doable. Did I mention that the Firestorm Wall also fries flying units? So, like, while it's active, the enemy cannot attack you with a missile. They cannot fly anything into your base, even if you don't have sufficient, like, anti-air. Just, yeah. Such an awesome, you know, just, yeah. Let's see, and the one thing about the Firestorm Wall, and that is something, thankfully, Firestorm, the expansion pack, fixes. You can only build, like, one little piece at a time, and then in Firestorm, the expansion, you can, I think you can place, like, 5 at a time. You build one, and then it takes up 5, and I think maybe it costs as much as if you built 5 on your own, and, you know, in both money and electricity. Let's see. Right, yeah, the sound is somewhat limited, and the music, while still sounding good, doesn't really have the whole adrenaline pumping thing that we've seen in the previous entries, but does create a solid mood. And the level design is fairly good. Both sides definitely get a very satisfying finale. And let's see, I think that might just about... I'm skimming my written review because a bunch of this, some of this stuff is about Firestorm, and as mentioned, I am not. Yeah, you know, Tiberian Sun, landmark in RTS games. Yeah, the multiplayer is also quite good, with a few dozen playable levels. A solid randomizing generator, which you can set values for a number of properties to ensure more, and several features that can be turned on or off before you start playing, including the old favorite of RTS games, the Fog of War. And, you know, let's see, the Fog of War, I think, yeah, the thing was, it didn't regenerate before this one, you know, and I think this was one where you could set it to regenerate. You know, before this one, once you've seen an area, you can just see that area. Where a lot of RTSs, it would regrow as soon as you don't have units or buildings in that area. Right, and you can also turn on and off whether or not bridges can be destroyed, whether or not players will be allowed bases, so, you know, you can fight with only units. And yeah, I will say the nod, I forget what it's called exactly, but they have this tank in this one where, you know, it can fire really, really far. Now, in order to do so, it has to, like, deploy. It's somewhat similar to the siege tank of the first StarCraft game, and possibly this. I have not played StarCraft 2. I might at some point. I don't currently own a copy. Anyway, it can fire, the one in here can fire really far, and I I think they realized they made a mistake because they make it, you know, they nerf it somewhat in Firestorm, which does also, it ends up not being particularly super useful there. But yeah, here it is. It's too bad, because otherwise there is a lot of fairness. You know, it's not that they have the exact same units, but every unit has a decent counter, especially if it's not versus GDI. Let's see. I want to say this is also the one with the stealth tank for Nod, which again, like, you know, and it's this thing of the stealth here does not function exactly the same as it does in, for example, StarCraft 1. In this one, if the unit is attacking, then it cannot be stealthy. It cannot remain invisible, you know. But yeah, movement and just so yeah, you can make a very impressive force of just these stealth tanks and attack an enemy that doesn't realize that there are, you know, except of course if you're going up against GDI and they have, I forget what it's called, but they have this like scanning tower that, you know, it's good against that. It also finds subterranean units, the aforementioned, you know, the APC and the Devil's Tongue, you know. So yeah, it's really they really sat down and thought about, okay, how can we think of something super cool and how can we counter it, you know. And then there's also just the fact that, like, some units that could be like, oh, this again, are made so cool just by little, you know, in Tiberian Dawn, the original Command & Conquer, and the first Red Alert, you know, there are, like, you know, GDI and the Allied forces have, like, a Jeep, you know. So, okay, well, whatever, you know, little Humvee, I guess it's, maybe it's not a Humvee, it's you know, a Jeep, machine gun, you know, fairly straightforward, you know, low cost, moves fast, pretty decent against, like, infantry and such, because it's slightly higher, you know, it has somewhat more armor, although obviously if you're going up against, like, several, you know, like rocket troopers and such, you might have trouble. But yeah, you know, it's fine. It's, you know, not super special. This one has a unit that fills the same, you know, yeah, has similar attributes, but instead of a Humvee, it's called Wolverine, so we already love it. We're here for it. It is a mech with the arms are Gatling guns. Like, how... I hope whoever thought of that got a raise, because that's just so freaking awesome. And, you know, you don't really need to do a lot about, like, a tank to make it cool, but they went the extra mile. It's also a mech. The cannon on it, it looks like an arm, you know. It's I think it's called the Titan or something like that, you know. Just, yeah. The Nod, you know, Nod already had the Obelisk of Light, the big, you know, laser. It returns, and now it takes up more space. You know, before it took up one space, now it takes up like 4 in like a square, you know, a quadrant formation. So, you know, you can't just build them absolutely everywhere. You need a little bit of space for it. But the basic one, the regular defense building is now also a laser. It's just a smaller laser, you know. Let's see, yeah, and the GDI, you know, they have multiple defensive buildings, and what they do is you build, like, what's it called? You build the base of it, and then you put on a head, and the head can be like a machine gun. It can throw these, like, grenade things, basically, and then there's the SAM site. Let's see, other stuff that's, one thing, so Tiberian Dawn, I want to say it's... Crap, I actually don't remember which of the sides, but one of the sides has a grenadier, which, you know, from what I recall, that side does not also have a rocket, you know, infantry person. And that was something they addressed in like one of the Red Alert expansion packs. I already did a video on those. I don't remember which of them right now, but yeah, talked about in that one. Here, instead of grenades, he throws discs, and it's one of those things of like, it really very much teetering on the line between, you know, is this awesome or is this just ridiculous? Because like, who, you know, they're effective. You know, they're effective against both. I mean, they're you know, it's not like literally, you know, it's not a what's it called? It's not like a frisbee or something, you know, but so it does do pretty decent damage against buildings and such. One thing is, and this is especially a problem because the AI doesn't account for it. If there's a hill in the way, the disc will just like, it won't go all the way there, and you know, you can have a soldier just stand there for minutes, just throwing the disc over and over, not moving, even though it might not take very much moving in order to get to a position where you can attack. And during this time, the other enemy, you know, if they have a weapon that isn't affected by that, yeah, they might be able to attack. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, the mammoth tank returns, and it's so, they did not have to do anything about the mammoth tank. The mammoth tank was already amazing. You know, they knew it was amazing. They brought it back for Red Alert 1, but they made it even cooler. It's giant. Like, it's this, like, just massive thing. You know, it's the size of several regular tanks. And it fires a laser against like buildings and units and such, and this laser will insta-kill an infantry person, and it'll make pretty short work of most like ground units. And it can also fire like missiles if there's some kind of, you know, enemy, you know, aerial unit. Let's see, the crap. Right now I forget if it's in this or it's only added in Firestorm, but yeah, there's also there's a helicopter that can pick up a tank and fly it somewhere. So again, you know, not worrying so much about water, although if your enemy is able to shoot down the helicopter, you know, because the tank cannot fire whilst being carried through the air, you know, it needs like grounding to so yeah, that's also, and yeah, the helicopter can pick up the mammoth tank. I think they also do give it like a specific like mammoth mark something, I forget the number. Let's see, the right, there's GDI can make like these guys with like jetpacks on their backs, and I mean, they only do have like a fairly basic, you know, like gun, you know, like I don't know, submachine gun, assault rifle or something, but if there's enough of them, and there can be, yeah, extremely effective, you know. Let's see, there's I know there's at least one more thing that I really want to make sure to get into. Right, the voice for Nod, pretty sure went through puberty like 5 times. Like, it has the deepest frickin' voice. Like, I don't know if they played it for James Earl Jones and he was like, that's pretty good, you know, but just, yeah. Let's see, and I think that might more or less cover. I feel like there's some other thing that I really wanted to mention. Yeah, this I forget the name of it, but there's also a infantry unit that, you know, it's basically like the commando, and you know, yeah, it fires this laser, which again, really powerful against both infantry and tanks, like the mammoth one. And you know, this unit can still place like explosives on buildings, same as the commando of the first of Tiberian Dawn and Tanya of the Red Alert games. Let's see, right, and if I recall, in Tiberian Dawn it was only the I guess this actually started that trend, because there's several of the ones to follow this in the overall Command & Conquer franchise. But yeah, in this one, the other side also has one. The evil side also has, the Cyborg Commando moves very slowly, but his attack does splash damage, and it's this like sci-fi bomb thing that just like, if there are several infantry standing close together, one hit kills each of them. It can take out tanks really quickly. It only does have that, it can't like plant explosives, but it's also really effective against buildings, so it doesn't need them, you know. That was another thing. Some of the infantry units in this are, for Nod, are cyborgs. And they also have amazing voices. And when, like, when an infantry unit, when an infantry human unit dies in one of these, you know, like, yeah, they get shot enough, they scream, you know, there's some blood, they fall over, that's it. When a cyborg starts to die, first the legs go, and it's crawling around like a zombie, and it can still shoot. It just moves even slower. And you can actually heal it if you move it across Tiberium. Like, it's not going to regrow its legs, which can get annoying, because after a while you might have a bunch of, you know, legless, you know, not to be confused with Lego-less, which would of course be, I think the only way to make that character cooler is make him a cyborg. But yeah, you might have a bunch of them, and they have full health because of all the Tiberium, but it's also, yeah. Let's see. The Tiberium, let's see, if I recall correctly, in Tiberian Dawn, it would, quote-unquote, just kill infantry walking across, which, again, is why, you know, so if you've got cyborgs and you want to save them, move them across some Tiberium, move them far enough away, because if they're fighting infantry, the infantry is going to have to run across, and you'll be healing your cyborgs as their human infantry are losing health. So very effective, you know, super effective. But yeah, in this one, doesn't happen every single time, and if I recall, you can actually, this is another thing you can adjust in the multiplayer sliders. Right, and the AI is quite good. If I recall, they improved it at least slightly from the other ones, where it was already good, you know. If an infantry moves across enough Tiberium to you know, basically like lose all their health from it. Not every single individual time, but some of the time, it will morph into this like horrifying body horror, you know, like I hope somebody showed it to, like, David Cronenberg, because I think he'd be like, they get it. And, like, just, yeah, also somewhat reminiscent of Akira, you know, just, yeah. And they have a mind of their own. They'll kind of just attack human, you know, individuals and technology that they come across. If there are a lot of, you know, and they can take somewhat of a licking, especially if they're able to move around on, you know, Tiberium, because that heals them. Sometimes faster than, you know, if you're not attacking it with a lot, sometimes faster than it takes damage. Yeah, I've seen several of these gang up on an enemy base and destroy it, because there was just enough Tiberium that they could keep healing. And yeah, that's a really, really cool, yeah. Right, I'm not sure if I made it clear. I think the addition of cities rather than endless villages makes it feel more, makes the world feel more alive, lived in, you know. I don't think it's a huge problem for the other games that they only had villages, but I do appreciate this upgrade. You know, in retrospect, it can feel kind of like, okay, so we're only ever fighting in places that have villages. We're never fighting near a city. And again, this is something that yeah, I think might actually, I think there's cities in every single Command & Conquer franchise game I've played that, you know, from this and onwards. So yeah, that's a really great, let's see, and also just, yeah, you know, like, sadly some people don't really care about villages. They're like, I don't live in a village, what do I, you know, it doesn't affect me. But the moment you see a city being ravaged by war, yeah, it's, you know, because these are like modern cities, they, you know, buildings that you can recognize as, you know, I mean they're sci-fi'd up because it's Command & Conquer, but yeah, they're close enough that they resemble, yeah. Right, the planes and such, really great stuff there. This is one where if you do like a bombing run, it fires the bombs really quickly, so you don't have to, you know, you might, depending on how well fortified the enemy base is, you might not get to, the bombers might not come back in 100% in one piece, but they are more, you know, they're more likely to be able to drop their entire payload before being shot down, compared to some of the other, let's see, I think, was it Tiberian Dawn, where like one of the ones that are effective against buildings has to basically remain in the air and fire like 5 rockets, and because it, you know, moves a lot around and fires slightly slowly, it, you know, it's not the most impossible thing for the enemy to shoot it down before it's fired all of them. And here it's basically like, well, you gotta shoot it down before it starts dropping its payload, you know. Yeah, I think that's everything, like, just really great. So much here that just really works. Right, was this maybe also the one where you could start like stacking more? I think from this one on, you could set it to train or build at least 5. I'm not sure you could go past 5 in this one. That happened later. That comes later. But yeah, in this one, yeah, you could set it to make 5 troops, and it could be 5 of the same, it could be 5 total of several different ones. Same thing for tanks, and yeah, that just, you know, less micromanaging really makes it, you know, enables you to focus on other things, you know. And yeah, just so many new strategic opportunities opened up by the stuff that this introduces. And yeah, just, you know, it's one of the best of the entire franchise. And yeah, I think that covers absolutely everything. So yeah, recorded for almost 39 minutes. So as you can tell, this is one that I, yeah, as mentioned at the start of this video, really love this game. Let's see, I am not sure I have anything super clever to end this on. Yeah, just really amazing. And yeah, that is it for this one. Yeah, hope you enjoyed watching as I enjoyed watching and recording. I will catch you some other time.